So Florida State's got talent at defensive back, but they're not getting production. I don't understand. I don't understand. You know, they're being poorly coached. Woods is a good coach, so just that. You know, they're not there mentally. You know, are there injuries that they've had? Has a hint? They're not what they used to be. But I do think that they're playing some guys outside of position. I haven't and wasn't sold on Brown outside corner. I think he's a better in this. I think you and I disagree on that. I would like to see Demore Tate put it together and get an opportunity to come off the practice squad. Got to see what you have there. Maybe it's time to let the freshmen play and see what they're going to bring. Maybe you look at Kevin Knowles at corner, Hunter Washington, Marion Cooper, three guys who had really good camps. What's going on now is not working. I agree with you. Safe pretty locked in. I like what I see at safety. Do you make Bernard Green back? Put him back to? I don't know, but the rotation and the play that's going on at DB is just atrocious, and the coaches aren't punishing their players for making bad plays.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you regarding Brown. I definitely think he's better in the slot than he is on the outside. Unfortunately, we just have shown nobody else can play on the outside better than he can, whereas we have some other people that can play in the slot, like Robinson and Knowles. So, and as a matter of we need him to, he's not great outside, but he's better than Jones and he's better than Dotson. So, you know, what are your other options? You know, Tate, I mean, we'll see, but I mean, we didn't hear anything out of camp about him. So, you know, and right. You know, as far as the young guys, you know, see that here's one of the things is like, especially like at defensive back and, you know, even at like linebacker, some too, like the more you play those young guys, because confidence is such a huge issue at those positions. Like if you lose confidence at defensive back and at safety and you start hesitating, you're toast, you're burnt. So when you play guys too early, even if they're talented and they're not quite ready, you have the chance to lose them for 4 years. Lose their confidence. It's hard to get that confidence back. We see that with you know, I think that's part of the issues with Dent, you know, playing too early, especially last year playing with the injury and stuff like that. He could never regain his confidence. You know, he's got it. It seems like to me, he's got it back now at safety, which is great, you know, but, you know, and that's across the entire line. I know people all this time, oh, just let the young guys play and get better. It doesn't always work that way, unfortunately. You know, offensive line, you play offensive lineman too early and it causes injuries, and then they get injured and then they don't develop because they're injured and they're on the sideline instead of being able to play and, you know, and get practice time and stuff like that. You know, I think that's some of the issues with Lucas. He's suffered a bunch of issues. He's gone now. Washington, I think that's why he hasn't developed quite as much as we would hope. You know, even like Maurice Smith and stuff like that, you know, he's dealing with injuries and stuff like that now, you know. So when you play young guys, like it sounds great in theory, but it just doesn't always work that way, and it can cause issues down the road. And you know, to me right now with Norvell, like this season, for better or worse, is lost, and no matter what he does, like it's not going to make a huge issue, you know, like so a huge difference, you know, playing the young guys. Okay, we're still going to end up, you know, with a losing record. That's how it is. And you know, so don't play those young guys unless they're ready, because it can only it doesn't necessarily make them better to play them early, is what I'm saying. So slow play them. If they're ready, play them. Absolutely play them, which we've seen Norvell has no problem doing, playing young guys. But if they're not ready, let them sit, you know, let the other young guys, let the old guys continue to take their lumps. And then once the young guys are ready, play them, you know. Obviously Hunter's going to be ready next year. He'd be our best defensive player right now. But, you know, I think I just saw Staples say this, you know, the bottom line is we have to keep this recruiting class intact, this 2022 class. That's our number one priority for anything. But
absolutely.
Like we have to.
So
whether it means keeping all the coaches or not.
I disagree a little bit. Yeah, I disagree with you a little bit on freshmen not being ready. I just think it's a different era than when you and I played. There's a constant 7-on-7s. They're playing constantly. I just think it's a different era where freshmen can come in at certain positions and play. I agree with you in the trenches, because if they're not physically ready, they're going to get hurt. They're going to get banged up. It's going to hack. But I think there are certain missions where the athlete can come in and play early and contribute to the team. For me, I look at it as, how can FSU just get better? Because I definitely think that the year is over now. FSU sits at 0-3, and you look at the rest of the schedule, you got to figure out where did some wins come from. So I'm ready to go on full youth movement. Show that this 2022 class that you're going to play young kids. Also, have some accountability for these guys for their play. Have some accountability for the knucklehead penalties. I know that the personal foul on Jones was a little ridiculous, but it's a sense of the call. He had on the going out. They were going to call whether he pushed them into the wall or whether he tackled them out of bounds. They were going to call that. One, it's the ACC and the rest are horrible. Two, that's just what they were going to do. For me, I just want to see some new blood, some guys that maybe aren't mentally done, to see how that impacts the team. So that's why I want to see the young guys play. Any follow up to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just, like, freshmen now are more ready to play than they were in the past, especially at different positions, stuff like that. I don't disagree with that. That's absolutely true. I'm just saying is that you can say that in general. I'm just saying you got to look at it as individuals, So yes, freshman defensive backs are more able to play, but does that necessarily mean that Hunter Washington is, or Marion Cooper is, Kevin Knowles is? Does that mean that those as individual guys are ready to play? It doesn't break all the way down to each individual. So individually, if they're ready and if they're not if confidence isn't an issue or anything like that, and they're not going to just get absolutely destroyed, and they're physically ready, absolutely play them. I got no problems with that, So, personally, I'd like to see, Cooper and Washington out there corner, and I'd like to see some of those young guys maybe at defensive end, rushing the passer and stuff like that, which Johnson and even McClendon and Thompson, those guys haven't been issues. They've played good. They've played well, but it doesn't mean you can't get those guys.
I told you McClendon was going to have a good year.
You did. I said I wanted to see it.
Was going to have a good year.
But remember, what did I say last year? That who was our best defensive end last year? Who did I say? I said McClendon was our best defensive end last year. I said he was just as good as Robinson or better. Yeah. So, but play Burrell at receiver, something. I know it doesn't matter if you don't have a quarterback that can pass it to him, but
yeah, there's a couple questions. There's a lot of debate going on in the chat right now about whether it's the players, whether it's the coaches. Is it a lack of ability? Yes to all of it, I think, is the best way to summarize that. It's just an encompassing situation where everything needs to be addressed, which leads into my next question. Real quick, Damari T hasn't played because he's coming off an injury in spring, and he's working back into it. From what I understand, moved off the practice squad and traveled this week. So there's some thought that he may be able to move into the rotation here within the next 1 or 2 weeks. So if he can put it together, I thought he was the best corner coming out in his class. Yeah, that would be so helpful for the secondary right now. So
huge.
But
huge.
I'm gonna ask a question. Is it time to make a change at the coordinator spots? And I like continuity. I understand it, but Florida State's not really in a situation right now where they can continue to and have the subpar product on the field. I do think that the coaches play a role in how they're teaching and their mentality and how it passes over to the team. I don't like Dillingham's play calling. a lot of that is just head scratching. But for me, you and I are the opposite end spectrum. You like to see Dilly go first and think that Fuller needs a little bit more of a time. I think it's time for Fuller to move on. And we talked about on the game. Excuse me. sorry. We talked about on the No Game Day podcast, either Spear, about that Randy Shannon coming in was a little bit of a twofold. One, getting a guy who could help in the Miami area, but also having maybe a little bit of a backup plan if things go sideways with Fuller, because last year was just a complete disaster. And we're not seeing anything better this year, Steve. We haven't seen we have better players on the roster than last year in terms of production, but it seems like they're getting worse. And my personal opinion, and we can discuss that, it's time for Fuller to go.
I would not be opposed to making a switch at defense quarter. I'm not like, oh, we have to keep Fuller or anything like that. I have seen some progression on defense. You know, our coverage overall is better. We're not making plays, and there's still some iffy coverage calls for certain. You know, 3rd and 17, cover one robber, cover two, whatever it was. Those are some issues for sure.